Good to go, yeah? Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and good night, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, wherever or whenever you are listening to us in the world. And welcome to episode 7 of the Racetech V8ESC Backfire podcast. I have our usual suspects in the house tonight, Mr. Tony Kloosterman.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And Mr. Johnny Brandon.
Evening, everyone.
And on the wheels of steel, we have Mr. Sam Boozin. He's definitely forgotten how to talk. So, on tonight's show, we have our usual race review, which will be round 16 and 17 from Zandvoort. Very interesting track. We'll go for our driver of the meeting as we normally do. We haven't got a guest driver tonight, so if anybody listening wants to jump in, by all means jump into the interview room and we will turn you into our guest driver. We will also be doing a preview of our Jewel in the Crown race, the Enduro from Bathurst, in 2 weeks' time. Little bit of iRacing news, and then we'll answer some questions from the live chat. So, let's start with Mr. Johnny Brandon, who managed 2 first places at Zandvoort, and for the first time in the series, a maximum 475 points. So, silly question, Johnny. How did you find it?
Is that really the first time that's happened?
That is, yes. I didn't realise until Chris posted it on Discord, and then I've had a look back as far as I can go, and yes, I do believe it is the first time it's happened, and probably the last.
Nice. Yeah, we're quite proud of that. Yeah, obviously it went well. Nailed a good lap in quali. Sometimes it just all comes together, doesn't it? And the last lap, it was. Yeah, I didn't make any mistakes whatsoever, so I was pleased with that. And then race 1, got a good lead at the start. I just kept it on the track. And race 2 ended up being a bit slow because I was saving far too much fuel. Because I literally thought race 1 was 13 laps, so therefore race 2 being twice as long will be 26 laps. But yeah, more careful planning needed in the future. But it's so difficult to overtake, so just kept going and made it work.
Yeah, and obviously you started in 12th position in the feature race, so you had to get past 11 cars on I think a very, very good track. I love the ebb and flow of the track, but it can be difficult to pass. And obviously with 0 incidents as well. Was it down to overtaking, or were cars in front of you throwing themselves off the road?
I think a lot of them threw themselves off the road in turn 1 in race 2. I made the right choice to follow Tony, and he took the right path, and it just seemed like everybody was on the outside. It seemed like twice as many cars went to the outside, and they were all fighting for position and tripping over each other, whereas me and Tony just had a clear path around the inside of the circuit, around turn 1 into turn 2, and there was just nobody there. I don't know if it felt the same for Tony, but that's what it felt like for me. It was strange. So it's nice to have a bit of luck.
Yeah, I could see the seas parting there.
I think a lot of the time, I know our coverage in the UK of F1, they always say that when the leader comes up to people, especially back markers, it's nobody's sort of fully aware of what's going on, but once the leader goes past, for the rest of the cars it's easier because people are then watching their mirrors a bit more. Do you find that when you're battling through the field on these reverse grid races? I'll ask this to Tony first. So do cars look at you and think, that's really not my battle and move out of the way, or do they tend to make it as hard as possible for you?
I think it depends a lot on the driver. Some people are very good about respecting the speed differential. Let's put it that way. And other people are, fight tooth and nail for every position. I don't blame them. It's a race, and that's what we're doing. So, I just look for the opportunity. But, I think the difference is between the person that understands when the overtake is going to happen and the one that doesn't want it to happen.
Yeah, I know what you mean with that. And Johnny, sort of same question to you. I know personally, if I see you in my mirrors, then I'm going to make my car as wide as possible. That I'm only joking. Me personally, I see the fast guys behind me.
I've seen your driving style. That car is as wide as it could possibly be anyway.
It's wide, yeah. If I get that that reverse grid and up the front, then yes, I am going to fight tooth and nail. But if I'm mid pack and you guys are behind me, I'm racing the Andrew Hoffmans and the Pete Binghams and them sort of drivers. And I find if I try and slow you two down and George and Victor and the rest of the fast guys, I end up losing overall time to the guys that I should be racing with. So I'm normally quite aware of who I can beat and who I can't beat. But do you get that, Johnny, as as a champion of the series and somebody who's leading at the moment? Do you find that there's cars that battle you, that you sometimes you're looking at them and like, what are you doing? I'm going to pass you at some point. Just let me go and get on with your own race.
Yeah, regularly. That's in most series. And it might sound like an egotistical thing to say, just let me pass, but it's a fact. If you want to fight, you're slowing yourself down as well as me, which is fine if that's what you want to do, but you're destroying your own race by trying to keep somebody behind that is at the very least going to be attacking you non-stop for the next God knows how many laps and making the race a nightmare for you. And as you say, the people you are racing, when it all balances out, you're just losing time hand over fist. Whether I get past or not, the smart thing to do would be to let the quicker guy go, sit behind him, use his slipstream, and try and stay there and make some time and lose the minimal time possible. If it's the last lap or two, fair enough. Do what you can to try and hang on to the position. But if it's like first half of the race, or even just gone halfway, it's just really. But there's nothing that says you have to do that. You don't have to let anybody go, but it's a fact that it's a bad choice. So people can argue with that and say what they like. They're here to race. This, that, that. You are destroying your race if you're wasting your lap time. Your lap time and your finishing position, I've said it before, is the time it takes you to get from the green flag to the checkered flag, not the laps in between. It's that single time from the green flag to the checkered flag. And if you're wasting your time holding somebody up for lap after lap and making yourself slow in doing so, then you're increasing that time and you're just ruining your own race, as well as ruining the faster guy's race. But it's a decision I never understand. But like Tony says, it's everybody's choice, whether it be a silly choice, which it is factually. But if people want to do it, it's up to them.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Johnny. And I think what happens sometimes is that you're following someone that is, on the faster side, but not as fast, and that defending can lead to an awful lot of frustration. And eventually, if you're defending and you moving 2-3 times on the entry of every corner to defend, you're just setting yourself up for some hurt, because eventually there's going to be a dive made, and as you're coming across, there's going to be contact, and that's the unfortunate part. We've seen it a number of times, but I do think that to your point, Johnny, if the guy is a second a lap faster or a half a second a lap faster, let him by, get behind him, and learn. Figure out where that half second is. And the more you're following the fast guys, the more you're going to learn.
Yeah, I can't disagree with either of you there. And obviously, I know you two are fast guys, and you want the road to clear in front of you. But speaking from one of the slow guys and being living proof of it, it's right what Johnny says. If you could run the race twice and do the polar opposites in each race. So race one, you did, and you got in the way of all the fast guys, but eventually they got past you. And then race two, you just got out of the way at a convenient place and carried on with your own race. I guarantee the race two, your overall race time will be quicker and you'll finish higher up the grid. But like you say, everybody's there to race. I just find my overall race time and probably my race enjoyment is better spent racing the guys that I know I can race rather than the people that at some point they're going to get past me anyway, and I've just lost 30 seconds trying to defend for 3 laps.
And that's sensible. I think that there's a fine line. I'm not saying people should just jump out of the way immediately. It is still the faster guy's responsibility to get past. But if somebody's got the inside, and this applies to whether it's a faster guy or somebody the same speed as you, if somebody's got the inside for the corner and they're up on the inside alongside you, 9 times out of 10, you've lost the corner. So just give it up. All this turning in and squeezing and trying to fight for the corner and stay there, all you're doing is losing time. If that guy's the same pace as you, you let him go. You take a wider line through the corner by giving him the inside. You get a much better exit, and you could have a go at him and get the inside into the very next corner if you play it smartly. To fight and not know when to give it up causes a million problems. Probably 99% of the accidents that happen, and also you lose 2 seconds in one bad decision in a corner because you refuse to give it up, and that can be huge as far as your race results are concerned.
Yeah, exactly. So, Tony, you had a third, I believe, in the sprint race, and then a fifth, was it, in the feature race?
Third and fifth, yeah.
So, with the feature race, as Johnny sort of alluded to earlier, he was following you through. You was opening the doors, and Johnny was helping himself going through with you. How come you finished fifth and Johnny finished first? Then was it a mistake or just somebody getting in your way?
No, Johnny's just that good. Now, a couple of things happened actually. I was stretching out the lead a little bit. I think I got up to about 5 seconds, give or take. And as I was saying to you just before the broadcast, I was having some trouble with my computer, where it was stuttering quite badly. And for 2 laps there, I was more preoccupied with the computer and staying on the road than I was with the actual lap times. And Johnny cut up the 5 seconds right there and then. It was always my intention to pit because I'm just rubbish at saving fuel. And I had hoped to pit with maybe a 7 or 8 second lead and then just try and work my way back up. I knew that a win was out of the cards. Unless everybody stopped. And I was pretty sure that Johnny and George were going to be able to save enough. I knew that Chris was on a fuel saving strategy, so I went in with the realization it wasn't going to be a good weekend for me. And next year we have to do something about these fuel savers.
Yeah, that's already in the pipeline. So people listening at home, you've heard from the two fast guys. Now, where the real racing was, down near the back and in the middle, where I was, two really, really good races. Myself and Pete Bingham in the first race were behind Andrew Hoffman, who put up a hell of a defence against Pete. I think he finally made a mistake, and then Pete got past him, and then I think I was behind him for about the last 3 or 4 laps and couldn't force him into an error, so finished behind him. And then in race, or before race 2 started, we had a little team discussion between myself, Pete, and Bill, and I was convinced that we could do it on a fuel save. Now, the last time me and Pete tried this was at Daytona, and we ended up about 33 laps behind everybody else because of our fuel saving. But it did actually work this time. I think I had half a lap left. I think Pete had a little bit more because he was running a different setup. But the racing that I saw at the back end of the grid was really, really good. And again, we had another couple of new drivers, and apologies for my pronunciations, but Jarek Sabula and who was the other one?
Miroslav.
Vernon Wiley. So yeah, two drivers making their debut.
I think you got another one as well, Miroslav Nostalgic.
He's actually raced. Yeah, I don't think he's raced in this one, has he? I think he raced in the sprint series.
Oh, okay.
Well, then again, I think I might be telling a lie because I think he was already on the standings. I think this was maybe his second race with us. But the two new guys, I think Vernon had a few issues, but Yarrick seemed to go quite well. Did either of you guys see much of him in the race?
Right at the beginning, I think he was running second there for a little bit. He seemed to be okay. Had some speed. I think he had an abnormally long pit stop, is what kind of ruined his
Again,
day.
I think that was Miroslav Nostalgic. I think that was right up there. I was sat behind him in the feature race for about 10, 12 laps or something.
Yeah, Yaroslav's pit was quite long, so it looks like he lost about 12 seconds or so there as well.
But always good to see new drivers coming into the series. We're doing well at the moment this year. We're still maintaining 20-car grids, so things are looking. I wouldn't say rosy, but normally this time of the season we're starting to lose drivers, but the top ones are always there, and it seems to be the mid and the back of the grid where people tend to drift away and drive something else. But I think we're doing all right this year, and I think that's a good testament to to the series.
Yeah, I think that the quality of the racing is up, and the grid it becomes tighter and tighter as time goes on. So really pleased with the fields that we've had so far. 20 cars is good. If we can average 20 cars every race, that's it's pretty good. We've got Bathurst coming up, and then Road Atlanta and the new Silverstone track. So still 3 more weekends to go before the Christmas break.
Yeah, and just to sort of concrete that, and I won't say who the message was from, but I did have a message on Sunday morning that said, and I quote, "I know I'm shit, but I love this series because there is always somebody to drive against."
There you go.
So yeah, very good. So
that was from Tony, wasn't it?
that was Chris.
Oh.
So yeah, Zandvoort as a whole, we've only raced there once before in the series, and I think the attendance was pretty poor. But I stuck it in this year, and we kept the attendance up. And I don't know, I'm not quick round it, but it's just it's got a lovely ebb and flow to it, and different types of corners. And I did struggle with the chicane. But I think it's a track that we should probably see on the schedule more often. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, I liked
Obviously,
it.
you would say yes because you had your
I,
perfect week.
I thought you could get into a good little rhythm round there. It's quite an enjoyable track to drive. I say similar things every week, but you couldn't push around there. It was the last thing you wanted to do. It was just find a rhythm and not make any mistakes. Very easy to overdrive it, but it was nice. You just had to put your car in the right place at the right time. Everything had to be spot on, but you could get into a real nice rhythm doing it. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I can't tell you the last time I did a race there. I think it was in the V8s like 3 seasons ago, my first season maybe. But yeah, really enjoyed it.
And Tony, is it a track that you've driven often, or I know you're mainly a V8 specialist, but have you driven it in any of the other cars?
No, never in any of the other cars. Lotus 49 a few years ago, but that car's a handful on any track. I quite enjoyed Zandvoort. I like the track. I think that it's technical. It's flowing. I call it a busy track like Oulton Park, but I enjoy it. I think that I'd like to go there more often. It's been probably, as Johnny says, maybe a year and a half since we last raced there. So if I see it on the calendar again next year, I wouldn't be disappointed.
Okay, and we normally talk about driving standards. I was in the thick of it a lot of the time, and personally didn't see anything to complain about. You guys see anything naughty in your mirrors?
No, the one turn one incident where there was 4 or 5 cars that got messed up there, and Johnny and I went through. But I think that was just that first corner. Very easy to lose it under braking into that corner. So that happens, and then the fast downhill section, another part where back into the car can get out on you. But the post race bitching, I didn't see too much, so that's good.
No, I must admit, there wasn't really much going on Discord, apart from congratulations and things like that. I know what you're saying about turn one. I can't remember if it was race one or race two. But I had one of my Lightning McQueen starts, and all these brake lights were coming on in front of me, and I couldn't work out why people were braking. And then I remembered that turn one was there, and had a bit of a code brown going into turn one, but managed to avoid everybody and not wreck myself, so that was good. Johnny, anything driving standards wise that you noticed from your mirrors?
No, not that I can think of, apart from the obvious thing that Tony mentioned just there in turn one, race two. But I have no idea what happened and what caused it, so can't come.
Okay, so coming out of Zandvoort, just looking at the standings quickly, Johnny, with his perfect weekend, has now got a 116-point lead over George, and Tony's in third, a further 181 points behind. So looking good, Johnny, for championship number 2.
Long way to go. We got Bathurst next, so long way to go.
I think you can just start and park and you'll be fine.
Well, to be fair, luckily it's not a team event and you haven't got Pete Bingham as your teammate, so you should do all right at Bathurst. Moving into the club championship, Gary Croft is leading that, although Nikolai is closing in on him fast. And then Ant Woodward is currently in third. And the team championship, 34 races have counted towards the team championship. And
We've only
Tony,
got
your
one driver.
team, NQR Holden, is 5 points ahead of Texense Fitzstein Motorsport. That one's going to the wire, Tony, yeah?
Yeah, I think it will go to the wire. So we'll see how it ends up. We've got 3, 5, so 3 weekends, and anything can happen.
How far are we behind?
You are in third place, and you are 273 points behind second. So 278 behind the leader.
I blame Foggy for dropping out. He dropped us right in there.
Most definitely. Into the safe driver. Johnny, you're ahead on that. And we have Lane O'Connor, very safe driver, second, and George McLean third. So that's that always goes to the end anyway. And in the forever forward, Johnny, you had a couple of good scores now in the feature races, so you're now 15 overtakes ahead of Victor in that, with George again in third. And something we talked about on the last podcast that we did was the amount of wins. And Johnny, with your 2 wins, you've gone top of the leaderboard. You now have 30 and Tony's on 29.
Oh, I had no idea. That's great.
Congratulations, Johnny.
Cheers, Tony. Obviously, yeah, I was aware of that after it was talked about last week. So quite proud of that to outscore someone of Tony's caliber. I'm pretty chuffed with that one.
And lap record wise, we didn't really get anywhere near the lap record, so we don't have to worry about that. So, driver of the meeting time. I think it's a fairly easy one this time, but I'm going to start with Tony.
Sorry, I was distracted here. I completely missed this question, Clyde.
No worries. Tell Val to put her clothes back on. Your driver of the meeting from Zandvoort.
Oh, that's why I didn't want to answer the question. Johnny, 2 wins, 0 incidents.
I've already won it. You can't say me again, surely.
Oh, is that a rule?
I appreciate the sentiment. But
I think there was some really good results from a number of people. If you look at both races and where everybody finished, I think the driving standards were very good. There was hang on.
I'll give my one. I would say that Miroslav Nostalgic.
Yeah, that's not a bad call.
Because of his race 2, new to the car, come in. I was quite happy to sit behind him and try and save some fuel, but he wasn't slow. And for somebody new to the car, it was pretty impressive. So hopefully they stay around. And well done, Miroslav. That's my vote.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to agree with Tony. I think anybody taking 2 wins deserves it. Anybody taking 2 wins and getting 0 incidents with a reverse grid second race definitely deserves it. And obviously, for the first time in the series, a 475 points maximum total. So, yeah, I think with me and Tony voting for Johnny, I think, Johnny, that's all yours this week. And let's hope it's a curse for Bathurst.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit embarrassing, but appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So, obviously, we haven't got a guest driver and nobody's volunteered. So, that's quite good. It means we can speed through things tonight. So, Johnny, next up, Bathurst, Jewel in the Crown race for the series. Round 18, it's an endurance race. I love Bathurst. I don't think it's easy at all. It's one of those tracks that for 70% of the track, if you make a mistake, you are going in the wall. We're also going to run it as a retro paint round. Poster will be going up tomorrow. So, first of all, Johnny, what do you like Bathurst? And you know, we have it on the schedule every season without fail. Something you like, or you know, would you like to give it a break?
I'd like to give it a break. On a serious note, I love Bathurst. Let's get that clear. I'm just not very quick around there, relatively speaking, which frustrates the hell out of me because I cannot understand why. I really love the place. It's great to drive around it, but for some reason, whether it just doesn't suit the way I drive the car, I just seem to struggle. I mean, relatively speaking, for pace. Um, I'll enjoy the race, but it's a damage limitation race for me, 100%. I understand why it's in the schedule every year. So yeah, I'm nervously looking forward to it, shall we say. I wouldn't miss it if it wasn't there, I don't think, as far as the championship is concerned. But as an experience, I mean, it's a standalone circuit, isn't it, really?
Yeah, most definitely. And you know, when you say you're not as quick as you are at other tracks, is that is it your one lap quali pace that puts you in trouble, or is it your
No,
overall lap after lap pace?
overall, lap after lap, just for some reason, I seem to. I'll probably put it on pole and lead the race now, but it's highly unlikely, I think. I love it. I love driving it, but I just don't know what it is. I just seem to struggle a bit around there, or I feel like I do. I'm completely confident in the line. I can get in the zone. I feel like I'm nailing it, but my lap times don't look that good. So yeah, we'll see. Not overly confident for it, but I'll enjoy it, no doubt. But like I say, it's going to be a damage limitation one for me. If I finish that race any higher than third, if I get third, I'll be over the moon. Yeah, if I'm in the top 5, I'll be happy. That's where I'm at with that at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different driving styles around Bathurst. I tend to be where I can slow, steady, and safe because I'm always worried about those walls biting me. But then you see other drivers that throw their balls out of the window and they're just, you watch them going around and you think, how are you doing that lap after lap after lap? And then occasionally the wall bites them. Tony, Bathurst to you, I know it's a track that you enjoy. What are you looking for from this enduro? You think you got a chance of winning?
I think I do. And I say that with some reservation because Chris and Victor are both very quick at Bathurst as well. Bathurst is a track that you need to be in a rhythm. It's I've done so many laps there that I almost liken it to being kind of unconscious as you're driving. Just drive it from memory. You need to stay off the walls. That's the big thing because even just a very small scrape on one of the walls could lead to steering damage. Very easy to do there. And it's a one pit stop race, which is nice. It's going to be 42 laps. Everybody should be able to get 22 or 23 laps out of a tank. In fact, I've seen them stretched out to 24. So we should be pretty good there, I think.
Well, it sounds like I'm doing something right then, because I do quite honestly drive unconsciously. So that is a good thing. It's going back to the series and this being the jewel in the crown race that we have. It's been in every season. We've done sprint and features, and we've done enduros there. A track that you want to see carry on in the series season after season, Tony?
I'd like to see it carry on. I think that with the V8s, it's almost sacrilege not to have it in there. One track I would like to see in, though, is Oran Park. I think that's a great track for the V8. I know Johnny will disagree with me on that, but
No, I like that one. Didn't we do that last season?
I don't know that we did.
We've
but
definitely
We did
done
a
it.
season finale with it. Yeah.
Okay. But I like that track as well. That's a real racing track because there's actually numerous spots to try and overtake on that track.
And just while we're talking about tracks, so it's not strictly Bathurst, but Tony's brought up Oran Park there. Johnny, is there a track that we don't go to or haven't been to very often that you would like to see?
That's putting me on the spot. No, I mean, I like all of them. I've said it before. Apart from Brands Hatch, Laguna Seca, and Bathurst, and it's mainly Brands Hatch and Laguna Seca I despise just because I've done so many laps on them.
So that's the first three sorted for next season.
Oh well, I will say I'm not slow at those tracks. I've done so. I just get bored of them. That's why I don't like a track, is because I just a bit bored of them. Yeah, that's it. I like the really obscure ones that it never go to, never done. That's brilliant. That would be my vote if there was versions of tracks that we've never done and nobody knows. They're the ones I like.
Yeah, there's a good insight, everybody, for people who fancy nominating a few tracks for the schedules. We've done it in the past where we've opened it up, and unfortunately, the more people you involved in scheduling a series, the worse it gets, and the more not arguments, but the more disagreements you get. But just going back to Bathurst, like I say, we're going to do this as a retro paint round. I know I've got some painting to do this week for myself and Bill and Pete. Tony, I know Greg does your paints. Will NQR be partaking in the retro paints again?
I'm going to have to ask Greg if he's even considered it. I think he's got a bit of a library, so hopefully we can just grab something.
And what about XVR, Johnny? I know obviously you don't do the painting. It's one of the other guys. I think it's Steve that does it.
Yeah.
Are you planning anything?
I think we talked about it last time. But did we not say we were going to run trading paints instead of a paint pack for that race?
No, we need to run a paint pack because of the sponsorship.
All right. In that case, I have no idea. I'll have to have a chat with Steve and see what we can come up with. Yeah, not had any further discussions. And as far as going back to the point about track lists for the new season, just a suggestion here: maybe write down every track that was used for this season and last season, and they cannot be in next season apart from Bathurst.
We do
So whatever it leaves,
do something similar to that.
Yeah, that would be my wish.
And obviously, Barcelona will make the list for next season as well, being a new track. So Barcelona and Bathurst will be definites.
Maybe Tony knows what track it. I mean, I can't really describe it properly, but it's part of an oval. It's a road course on an oval.
Yeah,
but it sort of goes out into the forest over a dodgy hill and then comes back in.
Yeah, I know which one.
With a sharp left-hander. I can't think what it's called, but I think I've done one race in that in the MX-5 about
Kentucky
2.5 years ago when I first got onto iRacing.
Yeah, I know which one you mean.
But there's a few obscure tracks out there that don't necessarily have to be short, but it might be quite cool. Do something different.
Well, we'll be starting to look into that very shortly anyway. So keep your eyes peeled for what's going on next season. And that moves us nicely on to our iRacing news section. And I must admit now that I haven't actually listened to the podcast, but I believe the new V8s are finally going to make the next build. I'll give that one to you, Tony.
Yeah, that seems to be the rumor. Anyways, on the podcast, they said that they'd actively been working on the new cars from the ground up, which means revised suspension and physics, and as well as the version 7 tires. So the first week of December can't come fast enough for me, because I'm really looking forward to that.
Is that when it is? The first week of December?
Yes, sir.
So have we still got a round left then, or are we finished?
No,
I believe we are. Hang on, I'll check.
we'll be finished, and then the following week, I believe, is the week that the new content.
That'd have been good, wouldn't it? If the final round decider would have been in the new cars and nobody had a clue. That'd have been great.
Yeah, we finish on the 30th of November this season. So we will have to wait.
I think it might get somewhat more popular next season.
Yeah, I was just going to throw that question open to both of you. Normally with iRacing, a new car gets released or a new version of an old car, and everybody jumps on it. And then a few weeks later, it's dead. But we've got a hardcore of racers, which I believe are going to stick with us through thick or thin, hopefully. And then I'm fully expecting to get a load of new sign-ups for the new season with a new car. And from the comments we get about the league, about being friendly and people helping out and stuff like that, and obviously we've got a few new features coming. I think the chances of driver retention with the new car is going to be massive, and I think the series might explode. Johnny, what do you think? You've driven a hell of a lot of different series in a hell of a lot of cars, and you see the ebbs and flows of what happens in different series. What do you think this is going to do for us?
Yeah, well, I think numbers will go up. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing remains to be seen. I think it'll be a good thing, because personally, I think the standard of driving in a league is something that's led by example. So if there's a lot of dodgy driving from people, it's just a snowball effect, and these things go. We've got a good league here. That, generally speaking, apart from Tony, everybody's pretty good, and it all works well, and there's good driving. That was a joke, Tony. It was a bit harsh.
I was going to say, you're going to make me have to live up to that reputation.
Yeah, so hopefully people come in. There might be I don't know what the word is. There might be an initial period of shock and horror. Although saying that, I think the new tyre wear model has done a lot to calm people down, because I was expecting the TCR officials on this. They start off very cold, the tyres, for anyone that hasn't tried it, and there's not a lot of grip for the first good couple of laps, not a couple of corners, at least 2 laps. And I thought that would just create carnage. But to be fair, everybody's sort of just accepted it and taken it on board, and it tends to be extremely clean. So that, I mean, if they're putting that same tire model and they behave the same way on the V8s, that it could be great and create a bit of patience in everybody initially, where most accidents happen. And I think it could go from strength to strength. I think people will be looking for a league. It's going to be very popular. Obviously, the official series will be very popular. So we'll see how it plays out, I suppose. If I'll be 100% honest. I was starting to think of possibly taking a season off the V8s after this season, until I found out the new cars were coming at Christmas. I wasn't intending on leaving completely, but I was thinking of having a break and doing a bit of the GT4 car and the TCR, and doing so because we're doing quite a lot of stuff in that at the moment. And I might still have to do those 2 cars, as we might have some news coming up soon, hopefully. But with the announcement of the new cars, I'll be all over them. So I'm looking forward to that, because the new tyre model is great on the TCR, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what it does on these, especially as, like Tony said, the cars are going to be completely new cars. I just hope they're not too easy, because it will take some of the fun away, but I think that the tyre model could counteract that. So I think the grid will close up a hell of a lot. Yeah, and it'd be really interesting to see how it plays out.
And Tony, you know, obviously you've been around the V8 for many, many years, and you've been with us right from the start. You know, what do you think this new car is going to do for, you know, A, the league, and B, you know, V8 racing in general? You know, we all know that the official is, you know, pretty much dead apart from certain slots in the week. Do you think it's going to, you know, help the private leagues and the official series?
Yeah, I think it will. And, you know, initially, whenever there's a new car, people flock to it anyways. And, you know, to be truthful, people have been hammering on the V8 that it has been undrivable for, you know, a couple of years. So, you know, this is their opportunity now. Get a new car and see if they can actually drive it or not. So what will happen is the people that can't drive it will go away, and those that can will continue on. So I kind of expect that participation will go up, especially for the first official season, I'll say, and then we'll see how many stick with it. As with any car, I think that the car has to be enjoyable to drive, and there has to be some challenge to it. Because if there isn't any challenge to it, then, you know, why bother? And that's kind of what draws a lot of people to the V8, anyways.
Yeah, obviously both of you touched on it there, and I know it's a discussion that's happened in Discord as well. But you know, people are sort of hoping that the car is slightly easier to drive than what we've got at the moment, but not totally dumbed down. So it feels like it's on rails all the time. But you know, I have this discussion with many people that tell me that the car is broken and you can't drive it fast and you can't do this and the car won't do that, and I always point them in the direction of you two and say, well, you know, watch our fast guys race. What's the fast guys in the Scops race? You know, then tell me you can't drive it fast and the car's broken. It's To me, it's a car that you have to dedicate time to be able to drive it quickly. And the trouble with a service like iRacing is a lot of people use it for pickup racing. You know, they just go, oh, I fancy driving that car on that track. Oh, there's a race, and away they go. They do half a lap, the car spins round on them, and they say the car's broken. That's shit. I'm never driving it again. But yeah, I think, you know, if the new car is true to the physics of the actual cars, that's going to help. I'm excited as well about the new tire model. I've heard lots of good things about it. Well, one thing that does confuse me, whenever we talk about the new V8, it's Ford and Holden. What happened to Nissan?
And Volvo.
Well, Nissan's opted out of the series. And I noticed that one of the supercar teams is just switching from Nissan to Ford. So I'm not sure that we're going to see 3 manufacturers there.
There was Mercedes and Volvo at one point as well, wasn't there?
There was,
Yeah.
They all quit now.
And they've all quit. You know, there was some rumor that Toyota might be interested in getting into the supercars. So well, we'll have to see.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
be
not a
switching to the
lover of.
Holden.
Go on, Johnny. Sorry.
Sorry, I'll be switching to the Holden. 100%. I know I'm going to upset Marco, but I can't drive that Ford. It's so ugly.
You don't have to watch it from the outside.
Oh, I can't be doing that. I'll be switching to the Holden. I think it's a much better looking car. Well, we'll see, but yeah, that's my initial thought.
I like the Mustang, but anyway, what I was going to say was, I'm not that fond on the the GT3 racing, but it's nice to see, different shapes and different makes of cars all in the same race, and I think iRacing and I think they're going to miss a trick if they just stick to the plain old Ford and Holden. It wasn't that many years ago that all we had was the Ford, and then they introduced the Holden with this build. So, I'm still hopeful that maybe we'll get something else. Question for you guys that you possibly won't know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and I'll start with Tony. At the moment, we've got basically two chassis with a different shell on, and you can interchange setups and they drive exactly the same, blah, 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 blah. New cars, are they going to be that way inclined as well?
I would expect so.
Short and sweet. I like that. So, I've got no other iRacing news. Johnny, have you heard anything through your contacts and on the grapevine?
No, nothing. No, apart from the TCR's a sweet car. That's all I hear from people. The new tyre model's good, and that the V8's coming at the end of the year. That's that.
Sounds like Johnny needs to have a TCR intervention.
Yeah, exactly.
And Tony, what about you? You heard anything else, or are we all just concentrating on these new V8s?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything else at all, actually. So, if we get the V8s, I'll be pleased as hell. It'll be my early Christmas present for sure. And, I'm just looking forward to that.
Okay, so moving on to the questions, we've only got one, and that is from our regular viewer, Mr. Pete Bingham. It's going back to Zandvoort. I'll ask Johnny first. He says you can attack the curbs a lot at Zandvoort. What do you each change in the setup that allows that here and not at other tracks?
Don't attack the curbs at Zandvoort. That's my honest answer on that. The only curbs I touched deliberately around there were the perfectly flat curbs, which were just a couple of the inside curbs. Anything else, stay well away from them. But if you were going to change it, you change basically your rebound, I think, on the dampers, just to soften them out a bit. But I would advise you to stay away from them.
What about you, Tony? So, a track where you attack the curbs, for instance, what do you guys do to your setups to be able to hit them curbs and not end up on two wheels and panicking where you go?
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on spring rate and dampers. So, Belle Isle, some big curbs there. You could actually, if you soften the springs up quite a bit and then play with the dampers, you were able to manage those curbs pretty well. As Johnny said, Zandvoort, the curbs are not as high at Zandvoort. They're more flat, and there's only a couple where there's really raised curbs. So, it was an easier track to get around than some of the others.
And taking that a step further, so we've got Bathurst next, and there are a gazillion and one different setups out there for Bathurst. Tony, what do you look for in a setup around Bathurst? Are you looking for something safe or something quick but on the edge?
To be honest, our team has used the same basic setup at Bathurst for the past 3 years. and that's even including the rear suspension change that happened last fall. All we did was adjust the spring purchase to get the car legal again, and the setup has remained the same. And I think that's actually helped our team, because we're not playing with setups. We're just driving the same car all the time, and then all we're doing is maybe adjusting tire pressure based on track temperature.
And what about you, Johnny? You know, Bathurst being in the series every season, do you guys have a specialist Bathurst setup, or do you do what you normally do and try a few and see what you like?
We've got a Bathurst setup that we used last time, I think, and went quite well. Or the guys went quite well with it. I didn't do the Bathurst 1000, but I think a couple of the guys used it and did quite well in the Bathurst 1000. But I will do the same thing. I'll start with that one, and then I'll try my Zandvoort setup, which has been the same setup the last 3 tracks. Then actually no, it's a different one this week. So I'll try the Zandvoort setup, and then I'll try the Belle Isle set, which was a different one, but that was the same as the Watkins Glen set. And I'll try them and just see, and they're not even that much different, but just to see what one feels better. But I prefer a fast, aggressive one, as it is a bit safer for me. Understeers is just the devil's work for me, and that tends to be what a safe set does if you push it slightly. So yeah, I'll be just trying to find something that's comfortable, really.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, being an enduro race, you know, I always edge on the side of safety anyway. But interestingly, I was talking to, I won't mention any names, but I was talking to somebody who runs in Scops back end of last week. And it's also somebody that does really well in Scops. And they were saying that their team have basically got 2 setups that last them a season. They've got a stiff setup and a soft setup. And all they do really is change the gear ratio and the ARBs. And I found that very, very interesting, because I know the work that goes on in the NQR team revolving around setups. And I just wondered, especially Tony, you know, is that something that you've ever heard of or ever thought about trying, or are your setups, you know, do you have a base and then you work on that base from there?
I think if I went back and looked at all the setups we ended up racing, you're probably looking at 3 versions: very soft version, a very stiff version, and something in between. And then it's basically just ARBs and gearing, as you say. The setups actually don't vary that much. And in fact, it was funny. I was practicing for the Bathurst 1000, the team event, and went into a practice session, loaded up our set, exited the session, came back into another session, and started driving around the track. And I was about maybe a half a second off my times from the previous session. Looked at the setup, and I was racing the baseline. So with the team sessions, that just automatically loads the baseline for you every time. So you know, the baseline isn't far off. Baseline with a gearing change works fine around Bathurst. Yeah, so I think people put way too much emphasis on setups being the be all and end all. They're probably worth a tenth or maybe 2/10, but that was about it.
It's real easy to get misled with the setups. So to have a stiff one and a soft one makes perfect sense to me, because that is basically what I'm doing when I'm trying our ones. We haven't got, like, I've probably got on paper 10, 20 setups, but if you actually look at them, on probably 12, 15 of them, the only difference will be tire pressures and ARBs. Everything else will be the same. But it's so, especially with a dynamic track nowadays, it's so easy to get lost. I used to put time into it when I first started in the V8, a lot of time into it, playing around, and you'd convince yourself, oh, I'm 8 tenths quicker than what I was doing. And I'd spend literally 2-3 hours changing things and be totally convinced that I'd made that car better. It feels better. Everything about it is better. I'd go back to the original setup and go half second quicker before I touched it. So you just doing laps is the best thing you can do in this car.
Agreed.
1,000%.
Okay, so there you have it, folks. You need to practice for Bathurst. Use the base setup. Johnny's shit round Bathurst, and we're all going to beat him. What more can you say? So,
I'm not even going to
guys,
argue with it.
we have almost managed to keep it under an hour tonight, which is brilliant. Johnny, anything else you want to bring to the table before we close?
Nope, I'm good. My money's on somebody having a perfect race at Bathurst and equaling 475 points. Is that possible?
It would be.
What's that with 0 incursions?
Yeah.
And first place, 25 incursion bonus for an endurance, is it?
Yeah, I think the 0 incidence is going to be the issue.
I'd have a little wager on that.
Clyde, I did the Bathurst 1000 2 years ago. I had 2 incursions on pit entry after 140 laps.
Yeah, so not 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think somebody can do it 0 incursions.
I think someone will be doing that.
I do have one thing to add. I misspoke earlier about Bathurst. Bathurst is a 2 pit stop race.
Oh, you should have left it at 1, mate.
Well,
it's a 2 pit stop race for Tony.
Yeah.
It
absolutely that doesn't necessarily mean it's 2 pit stops for everybody else.
Okay. Well, if Michael Talianich comes here and does 42 laps on 44 gallons, I will buy him a case of beer.
You know he's going to do it with his hybrid car.
No, it looks like we're probably 9 gallons short. So save 9 gallons in an hour and a half. You're some sort of Superman if you can do that.
Yeah, I've not even looked at it yet, but I did manage a stint in the Bathurst 1000 with 0 incidents, but my trouble was I had Pete Bingham as a teammate and he didn't. So I think it's possible. I think you're right, Johnny. I just
I honestly don't know. I honestly
an hour and a
haven't
half
even thought about it. So
on your own, 2 pit stops, back markers. There's bound to be people getting lapped as well. I'd like to see it, but I'm not convinced.
I think it's possible to do it with 0 incursions. Whether you can win the race with 0 incursions as well, because it's not going to be an easy race to win, then that will be impressive. I think Talianchi should be capable of it if he turns up. I think Tony's capable of it. Knows the place very well. I know the place very well. I think I'm capable of getting 0 incursions with him. I'm capable of winning. It's another matter. But you never know how it plays out. So George is capable of it. George has been very low on incursions for most races. Seems to be something he focuses on. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's another 475, like the buses. One comes along, they all come along. Don't see one for ages, and suddenly there's loads of them.
Yeah, we'll see. Tony, anything else you want to bring up before we close?
No, that's it for this week.
Excellent. And obviously we don't let Sam talk, so we're not going to ask him. So it just leaves me to remind everybody, Sprint Series this Saturday. I am fit and well. at the moment, so there will be a broadcast this week from Bathurst. And I'm sure I'll be joined in the booth by Bingham and Switzer. So, we tend to have a bit of fun. I'm sure there'll be a bit of fun around Bathurst anyway. 2 weeks' time, obviously, we've got the main event, the Enduro race from Bathurst with, if you can, your retro paints. Make sure you get them into Dave Jansen as early as possible. Couple of guys this week, paints in late, and we was at the mercy of the broadcasters whether we could get them in or not. So get them in early, and let's see what people come up with. Obviously, I'd like to thank Racetech for the continued sponsorship of the series. Sam for doing his wizardry in the background, and Tony and Johnny for joining me again on our little podcast. And we'll be back in a fortnight's time with all the action and all the hissy fits and handbag throwing that happened at Bathurst. So just leaves me to say good night, and I'm sure the guys will also wish you all the best. Good night, everybody.
See you in 2 weeks.
Good night.